Is Bob Iger ready for a bidding war?
Well, it's not what he wanted, but I think he's ready. He certainly has the balance sheet. He certainly has the strategic rationale to push forward on a deal. I mean, he's kind of put his chips all in on taking all the Disney content, including the sports content, direct to consumers. And in order to do that, you have to have even more content than a behemoth like the Walt Disney Company has. So he needs to bulk up on content. Fox does that for him. And he needs to dramatically increase his international exposure, get out of the more mature business of the U.S. a little bit, and Fox does that for him as well.
So what's the ambition of Brian Roberts and Comcast? The very same thing?
Very similar thing, and I think the issue there, very similar rationale. However, you know, the Comcast is going to be using its balance sheet in a big way. All cash offers, what they're talking about, to really push the limits of leverage. And I think, you know, we've seen the Comcast stock really sell off, really underperform since Brian Roberts has started to be aggressive on this. Comcast shareholders would rather see Comcast go in another direction, i.e. buy back stock.
See, that's the really interesting story in the price action, isn't it? That Comcast investors don't seem to like this. What is Brian Roberts saying that Comcast investors aren't?
Well, I think Brian Roberts is saying he has to diversify away from his core U.S. video and broadband business. They love the NBC Universal assets that they bought several years ago. It's been a real home run for the company. They feel like the future of their company also includes a direct-to-consumer relationship, and the NBC Universal assets just aren't enough to really get you there. And really, at the end of the day, when Rupert Murdoch finally decides to sell after decades of building this company, it is truly a once-in-a-lifetime asset, and I think Brian Roberts feels like he's got to be there, too.
And Bob Iger would be lucky for it just to be one bid and
That's
done.
Right.
There's two soap operas. There's the international soap opera playing out in London with Sky, and then there's the domestic soap opera playing out with Fox. Comcast's bid for both of those companies now. When we get the established bid on Fox, we already have one on Sky. What's the most likely one to go through on a regulatory basis and just on the overall appetite of shareholders?
Well, I think, you know, from a regulatory perspective, I think Comcast feels that it's clearly in better position for Sky. Rupert Murdoch has been trying for years to get the Sky asset. Lots of pushback with the various agencies in the UK, so there's probably a cleaner path there. Disney also has a very clear path if they wanted to pursue, even if Fox couldn't get Sky, Disney could step in and buy Sky. So there are lots of buyers for Sky, and I think the real likelihood here is that at some point, Brian Roberts, Bob Iger will sit down in a room somewhere and carve these assets up.
Well, that's the really interesting point. Who does Mr. Murdoch want to sell to?
I think he'd prefer to sell to Disney. I think his family would rather own Disney stock. I think an all-cash offer from Comcast will likely trigger some tax issues that he and his family don't want to deal with. So I think they're prepared. They would probably like to be an owner of the combined Disney-Fox assets. I think they view that as a superior play long-term.